I agree, and here's my solution to it. And you can agree or disagree with it, or whoever's listening, call in definitely, 917-889-8516. But you see Alabama and Clemson and Georgia and these elite programs, they play against at least one time a year. They play in an FCS school like Furman, or we saw Alabama play against Citadel this year. Those are automatic wins built in for these elite programs. And I think that should not be allowed in college football. But since it does, and Notre Dame does not have that 13th data point, that 13th game, would people be opposed to Notre Dame playing a school like Citadel or Furman while the other schools are playing their conference championship games, getting that 13th game? Would people be opposed to Notre Dame's 13th game, with them playing against an FCS school because we see these other elite programs do it?
Here's my thing, and really at the end of the day, I could care less if it's the Citadel and IU in the national championship, and nothing against the Citadel or nothing against IU. I'm a fan of both of those teams, but let's face it, they don't have the best football teams in the world. But I'm using that for extreme examples. I don't care if that's who's playing in the national championship if they've won enough games to be there. The unfortunate here's where I get lost in the mix is March Madness, one of the greatest playoffs in all of sports. We all love March Madness. Schools from all sizes and shapes and schedules and everything else come together for a week or so of great hoopage. Same schools. By the way, NCAA is several sports, several schools. All the same schools are talked about in the NCAA football that are in the NCAA basketball, whether or not we talk about it on the level that we talk about Alabama today. Why can it not be the same process? Do we need? No, of course we don't need as many teams, but 6 or 8 teams, yes. I think there's a spot for at least 6, maybe 8, but 4. It just goes back to a control factor. And if you're not in the good boy club, if you're not in the country club, if you will, air quotes, of college football, you're never going to get into the playoffs. And that's unfair to schools like UCF.
And the way to fix that is an 18 playoff. And I think the committee, or at least some members of the committee, have actually opened up that discussion of an 18 playoff, which is where it should have started to begin with, and it should not go more than 8 teams ever. 8 teams should be the limit. That is the perfect number. It should never be 10 teams or expand to 16 teams or whatever it is in the future. It should just be 8 teams and leave it at 8. And the reason why there's so many teams of basketball, because there's like 313 Division I basketball programs. There's only like 130 foot the Division I football programs. So, although I'll be a big fan of a 64, 68 tournament, but you can't have that in Division I college football.
Again, not saying that it has to be the exact scenario. I'm saying the way that 8 teams. I agree with you. I think we're both in agreement on that. 917-889-8516 is our digits. Me and Rick Riggin, my executive producer of The Balance, college football contributor, Notre Dame extraordinaire, and a guy who likes to get his hair cut every week just because. If you want to join in the conversation, give us a call. Hey, let's talk a little bit about Alabama. Hey, we haven't done that recently, have we? Nick Saban, DJ Durkin, Nick Saban's school for the college football. I'm in air quote mode, by the way. School for college football coaching needs their image rehab. Took in the most controversial figure yet, which led to the Alabama head coach issuing a statement on Thursday. The word emerged that former Maryland head coach, you guessed it, DJ Durkin, has been serving as a consultant for Alabama. Durkin was placed on administrative leave in August over an investigation into the death of one of his football players during an off-season workout. Durkin was initially cleared and returned, as we talked about it on the show, cleared, allowed to coach. Then social media said, no, we don't like that. He was fired from Maryland. Now, apparently, he's a consultant, air quotes. Saban working with Durkin led to plenty of public backlash. The prominent SEC figure, Paul Finnebon of ESPN, said the move was absolutely terrible, and an embarrassing look for Saban. Rick, what say you, DJ Durkin and Nick Saban partnership?
Well, that's what Paul Feinbaum said also about when Steve Sarkisian was fired from USC for his drinking problem and being drunk at a boosters convention, speaking on recruiting and speaking to the boosters and speaking about the program. He did it while he was drunk and fired from USC, and he got the exact same role at Alabama as a consultant. And it worked out because then Lane Kiffin ended up leaving for FIU. Sarkisian came in for one season, or actually just a few games, I think, towards the end of that season for Alabama as their offensive coordinator, and now he's the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. I think it is a formula that works. It works great for Alabama. It works for Nick Saban. He's the misfit coach whisperer, I guess. He gets their professional careers turned back around. I don't have a problem with it personally for me because it seems like whatever Nick Saban does these coaches. It works for them professionally and maybe on a personal level too, with their lives. It gets them straightened back out. And maybe, Maryland didn't find that DJ Durkin was guilty of anything. So for me, it's not a problem. I know Paul Feinbaum goes over the top on a lot of things, but I think in this case it's okay to at least it's not Art Briles, right?
Well, that's true. But what do you think about the message that Nick Saban is sending? I mean, let's face it, DJ Durkin got crucified by social media, and there are those in power that live and die by social media reputation. DJ Durkin lost his job at Maryland because of social media. Does it make any difference to social media that he's at Alabama as opposed to Maryland?
I don't think social media should be really a consideration for anything when you're talking about getting a job or hiring somebody. So I just don't think that it's a bunch of us, Tom. It's a bunch of people like us on social media. It's a bunch of nobodies. So
hey, we're not nobodies. I'm on loan from God, damn it.
In consideration.
I am so. Anybody that knows me, and I get myself in trouble on social media because I probably post about things I shouldn't post about people I shouldn't post about, and I get myself in trouble. But I'm a big social media person. But at the same time, let's not live and die by the social media sword. And I think we've talked this to death, and I'm guilty of it. I'll be the first one to say something that comes on my mind on social media, whether it be a positive or a negative. And I'm guilty of that. I am guilty as charged. But at the same time, let me vent. Let me, like you said, a bunch of us, although you and I are a little bit better because you and I are right there with God. I mean, come on. But there are people who are below us. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But you're right. It is a bunch of us. It's a bunch of people who have an opinion, and universities like Maryland, or we could use ESPN. There's a lot of things that we could use. We could use the Indianapolis Colts getting rid of their radio personality because of social media, because of something that he said, and it got on social media. No, I shouldn't. I don't think that we should live and die by social media. But that said, if Maryland decided to get rid of DJ Durkin because of social media, was it the best idea for Alabama to hire DJ Durkin and risk the backlash?
It probably is, because Alabama and Nick Saban can withstand a social media storm, you know what I mean, as opposed to a school like Maryland who hasn't won anything ever. And then you look at a program like Alabama, he's just going to be another coach there, honestly. I mean, Alabama has the credentials to withstand whatever social media storm. And here's the bad thing about social media, for one. So let's look at Kyler Murray, wins the Heisman, and then like an hour after he wins the Heisman, it comes out that when he was like 14 years old, he posted something with the word queer on it on social media. You know, I mean, that's bullcrap. That should not happen, and that's the bad thing about social media. And that was probably just an Alabama fan in the media with 3 teeth, and they're pissed off because Tua didn't win the Heisman Trophy. That's the reason why that happened. That is the whole thing behind it. That's why social media is bad, and social media should not go to any consideration when making a move like that.
You know, you're just going to launch social media into outer space when you said Alabama fan with 3 teeth. That's like saying a Trump voter with 3 teeth. I'm just kidding
come on.
I totally get what you're saying. We a few minutes left here, and we're going to get to Grant Alstiff, who we're going to talk some NBA with us. But let me just go to him and say hello. Grant, are you with us, sir?
This is Embry.
Oh, hey, Matt. Oh, I'm sorry. I had my numbers mixed up there. I apologize, Matt. I did not know you were calling in. Thank you, Matthew Embry, one of our other.
Sorry, I overslept there.
Oh, that's okay. Well, we were just talking a little bit about DJ Durkin and Alabama and, the backlash of social media. So go ahead and chime in there. We're going to get into some bowl talk here. Grant, by the way, Grant Alstiff is going to be joining us in a few minutes to talk some NBA. So I apologize for getting you confused there, Mr. Embry. My greatest apologies.
Not a problem.
Go ahead.
I think right now Alabama should have known better than to bring in a controversial person. I mean, they are the king of the hill at this point. So everything move that you make is going to be criticized. So I think this was not the greatest of decisions by Nick Saban. Now, granted, he's going to get away with it because he is super powerful at Alabama, and it would take a colossal action, maybe to the level of a Sandusky situation or something like that, to knock him off like it did for Joe Paterno. But at this point, I don't think he's going to be able to, avoid it. I mean, he'll get away scot-free, mind you, but I think if you were looking for a coach, I think you could have done better than DJ Durkin, but that's just my opinion.
So why, Rick or Matt, either one of you guys can answer this, but why so quick to give Durkin a second chance?
That's a good question in my mind. I mean, the stuff that's coming out of Maryland, and even now you're seeing even more negative stuff that was going on while he was the coach there at the football program, and a lot of stuff dating back to when Ralph Friedgen was the head coach as well. I mean, that has just been, for some reason, a very dysfunctional program. It's a shame considering how many other sports at Maryland where there is not this kind of backlash, and they are winning championships and doing it the correct way, like, for instance, the women's basketball program under Brenda Fries, for instance. I mean, what the football program is doing totally contradicts what Maryland is about, and the fact that, if Alabama wants to bring in a guy with a shady past, more power to him, but I think right now, if in the long run, I think Maryland's going to get back on the track right now and try to clean up their image, because what DJ Durkin was about is not what Maryland is about, as far as what I've seen from their other sports programs.
Rick, go ahead. Chime in there, sir, and we're going to get into some of these bowl games. Go right ahead.
I agree with him. I agree with Matt totally. I just, for Nick Saban's side, maybe he just looks at other coaches available for that position, and he chooses what he thinks is going to be the best fit. And maybe he just sees it as a challenge to rebuild these guys. They have these shady situations like Steve Sarkisian, and he sees it as a challenge. Maybe that's just part of his culture there in Alabama. I don't have any idea. I agree with Matt and with Maryland. I don't know why it's different for football than any other school, because to me Maryland's always been a basketball school. That's the root of their sports program, really. That's where the money comes in at. But maybe they're trying to turn this around for football, and they're just going about all the wrong way. So I don't know what's going on with Maryland football. But for Nick Saban, I just see it as he takes it as a challenge, I guess, to rebuild these coaches.
All right, guys, let's get into some of these bowl games. We go into this every year, and there's we can have 4 teams for a playoff, but we can have so many bowl games. So I guess it balances itself out. But we don't get a chance to talk about all the games. And, so if we minimize your bowl or make fun of a bowl game, congratulations to your team on getting on a bowl game. But I think we should at least touch on some of the non-top 4 bowl games that people are looking at as far as the national championship, at least as we build up momentum toward